On the afternoon of August 4th, 2020, Carlton Weekly, or fbgduck, was shopping for clothes in Milani Boutique for his son's birthday. It was a good day for the recently signed rapper, who was spending big money in Chicago's upscale Gold Coast neighborhood. At approximately 3:59, Ralph Turpin, or THF Teasy, and a friend entered the boutique and noticed Duck. Turpin had issues with Duck because apparently Big Clout had slept with the mother of his child and was from a rival neighborhood. Turpin, ready to crash out, then made multiple calls to people, loudly and frantically demanding numbers of very prominent people, such as OTF D-Thang, Lil Durk's brother. Teasy is allegedly on camera talking into his phone, saying what's D-Thang's number and to have D-Thang call him. According to the feds, Teasy knew there was an alleged $100,000 hit out on Duck, and he was looking to kill two birds with one stone. Exactly 3 minutes after Turpin began placing these calls, cameras caught Oblock members jumping in cars and racing from Parkway Gardens. Feds also caught the cars of Los and Kenny Mack on street cameras headed to Oak Street, the same vehicle seen on scene at the shooting and leaving Oblock.
And heard what I thought was a machine gun. And then a black car speeding down Oak Street going west.
7 minutes from Teasy walking in the boutique, the feds alleged the five were in two cars owned by Los and Kenny Mack headed to Oak Street. By the time they arrived at 4:26, Duck was gone from Milani, but standing outside of Dolce & Gabbana waiting to enter under COVID protocols, unknowingly still being stalked by Teasy.
Two vehicles pulled up. Four individuals exited those vehicles, two from each vehicle, and began firing at the individuals that were on the sidewalk outside of one of the stores here.
Four shooters would then pull up and brazenly let off 38 shots in 12 seconds. A volley of gunfire breaking the robotic routine of the everyday downtown shuffle. Crowds gathered, and then the news broke almost instantly. So fast, many wonder how. Pictures of Duck deceased start popping up on the internet immediately. Now, with the evidence out, it all makes more sense how the world knew so quickly. The case blew up due to the prominence of Duck, the outspoken nature of his mother, and the location and manner of his death. Everyone had an opinion, and the feds began to tune in and watch the Easter eggs fans were dropping.
But we ain't never do it. More from the arm with them get back up. If you looking tough, push your shit back, boy. Do from 63rd, couldn't get back up. Knock a hold out.
Can blow they fucking block down. Niggas hide. Soon they pop out shots fat. Man down. No emblems, his ass died. His mama crying. Don't get no fuck, we still slap.
On me, get tight. Facebook juking off that duck. Then Smurf say he should've done. She made Spot News that shit. Fuck dude, I was on the hunt. When I spot dude, I'ma show him something. I'ma overkill him for them knowing something. Come outside. My mama 4D4 heats. Yeah. Put your stupid ass right on the teeth. We got phone rolling up brick over there. Yeah. Phone rolling up brick over there. Phone putting the duck out right there. Oh, we got a lot of chicken in. How you doing?
Exactly. So do you got any, I don't want to, stir up nothing, but do you got any, thoughts, on fbgduck, any thoughts on him? Like, did you know him?
Who, Duck?
Did you know him before, everything?
Like that. I don't know. On game. All I know, don't say that shit about Troy, or rest in peace, Duck. Okay, so you got anything about fbgduck? You know what I'm saying? You don't say shit about Troy. That's it. Don't say shit about Troy. Get that guy over there. Whatever, you know me. Come on, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know I know that. Stop playing. Stop playing.
Until eventually they would indict 5 men for Duck's murder, and a crazy amount of information on snitches, killings, and the Oblock faction, the BDs, would begin to a story that deserves so many different videos, so we would continue to develop and dissect from many different angles. We would start by introducing the cooperators that made this happen, Teasy just being one of many, as you have seen. One of the more interesting alleged witnesses in this case is Martell Wiley, aka Swiper, found himself being accused of being a cooperant on the conspiracy case of the Oblock5. Initially, this seemed like crazy talk, something we didn't even feel the need to look into. But as more and more information was being divulged, it didn't look possible. It was starting to look like a fact. And eventually Trenches would get on camera and speak on his involvement, but not before he lied, brought others down, and flat out became unhinged on camera. Let's get into Trenchesnews, Woodlawn 5-0, and the fall of Oblock. To understand the story more clearly, you have to understand how unique a character Swiper is in general. He hails from Newtown, a now extinct project on Chicago's low end that began being demolished in 1999, with the last building being torn down in 2005. Newtown, a housing project officially known as the Madden Park Homes, was the last project built in the city. Along with the Clarence Darrow homes, they were a part of that Ida B. Wells Housing Collective, a consortium of high-rises along Chicago's low end that dominated Bronzeville's landscape for decades. Newtown, a treacherous neighborhood in the 80s and 90s that became heavily inhabited by drug addicts and one gang hell-bent on taking over the drug trade in the area. The only problem was rival gangs primarily still controlled the drug traffic in this area. These two factions eventually set out on a course that would help change the gang geography of the city. One of several gang wars resulting in a shutdown of multiple projects in Chicago's low-end area, including their own. The war became so intense, a guard was actually gunned down in his booth while on shift. The war continued in Newtown, and the divide eventually developed, with the majority of the gangster disciple factions in the buildings flipping BD or switching gangs. This is why Swiper was able to be so comfortable around GDs and BDs at different points. He knew both sides from the buildings when they were up, as well as others from the low-end community. He was able to move like that because the projects were scattered. It's all a result of gentrification. That feud in Newtown, along with a few notable others in places like the Robert Taylors and Stateway housing projects, would eventually propel the city into a plan of action, demolishing all the buildings. The city began a demolition race, destroying housing projects left and right. Until by the early 2000s, Chicago's aerial landscape looked totally different, especially when you looked at Chicago's low end. The city handed out Section 8 vouchers for housing, and all of the residents from the projects began conglomerating in the closest neighborhoods that would accept these housing vouchers. Those neighborhoods at the time were primarily Inglewood and Woodlawn. Swiper was no exception. He landed in Parkway Gardens or Oblock. There he became familiar with the members like Vaughn, Slutty, T-Roy, E-Dog, and many, many more. Back in the day, Newtown had a fallout with the BDs from Oblock over a member being killed in a feud. This led to the Newtown members being pushed out. Now Swipe found himself on the move again, this time a few blocks away with the GDs who he knew from the buildings as well. This is where the FBG connection begins. This is how he knew everybody from Lil B and K.I. to T-Roy and King Von. It wasn't many face cards he hadn't ran across or names he didn't know. This left him in a peculiar situation in today's social media fueled world, where street dudes are superstars. He knew them all. This birthed Trenchesnews. Playing both these blocks, he witnessed everything from Oblock members masking up to Modell right before being killed. He knew a lot. So he decided to speak, divulging into shootings and cases. Fans began following his stories because they were so in-depth. After the murder of fbgduck, paperwork began trickling out. See, the people on his case were initially named as just cooperators. No initials, no real clues. So everybody got the benefit of the doubt. No one had a clue who the informants were, and Trenches embraced this and began spinning it for content. A few months back, we were tapped in watching all his responses to the Oblock arrest, and he did something that's deeply troubling considering the facts we have now. He repeatedly accused King Von's brother Louis of being a snitch due to him being arrested with a gun around the time the case was being developed. Trenches will repeatedly go live accusing King Von's blood brother of snitching on the BDs, literally putting Louis' life in jeopardy, which is now looking pretty sketchy
But when it
considering he knew
says
he
that
spoke on the case himself.
the individual, the individual requested, the individual requested to speak with federal agents about FBG Duck's homicide. So this guy was in the police station and he was in area 2. We got proof. So Chiracology right. I looked it up and I went back and he was in area 2, which is 111. If you from Chicago and you know the areas of the police station, area 1 is headquarters will be 51st Street. But headquarters is 35th now. Headquarters for the whole police station. But area 1 is the area 1 headquarters. That's where the news stations come. If they got a problem with anything or some police involved, they're going to go to area 1 and shoot. Or he had to get bumped off going east to go to 111 or in the hundreds. Anywhere and how he got bumped off. And he asked to talk to the feds. Now, we know for a fact that Louis got bumped off, Oblock Louis, which is King Von's little brother. We know for a fact that he got bumped off August 17th for unlawful use of a firearm without a FOIA card and all that shit. He got popped off. We know this for a fact. There's no debating about this. Louis got popped off on August 17th at nighttime. So that means in that morning time, within that nighttime and that morning, he requested to talk to the feds. He wanted out. He ain't want to go to the county for that gun or none of that. This Von brother I'm talking about. Or could it be Louis, who close to him, who in a room smoking while all the gang members talking about this shit. They overlooking it because that's his brother. So they overlooking that shit. You hear me?
Trenches stated he knew for a fact Louis snitched. However, without talking to anyone, the one thing we can't ignore is could Louis be cooperator number 2? That person is from Oblock and a self-admitted current member. Swipe seemed very certain he was snitching, and according to him, it will all come out. As more and more details kept emerging about the situation, eventually we had the full breakdown. And this time, Mr. Martell Wiley wouldn't be able to wiggle himself loose so easily. Blog sites via Reddit eventually acquired more recent paperwork. The internet, which we all know is unmatched in their ability to solve mysteries, began rapidly putting the puzzle pieces together. The initials, along with their statements and backgrounds, gave internet detectives pretty solid evidence to work with, and work they did. Cooperator 1 has Trenchesnews' initials, is from Newtown, a now extinct hood, and lived in both Oblock when it was DeWitt and STL. That's a very unique situation that he's literally admitted to on camera.
I said I pulled into the garage at...
You know you done fucked up, right?
No!
The facts were hard to deny. With the fbgduck paperwork long since out and Swiper being openly accused on the internet of being cooperator 1, things are looking a lot more clear now. For instance, he spent months calling them the sloppy Oblock5, telling them over and over to take the plea deal of 50 years. Even saying if anyone listened and knew them, they should relay that message.
Man, they just fucked, bro. A real nigga, one of their friends, bro, need to just tell him to cop out, bro.
In hindsight, it makes us wonder, was that his way of protecting himself? See, if they take the deal back then, the feds keep him hidden, only named as cooperator, and he gets to keep working for them. A win-win for everybody, which was probably the initial plan. But the hit received so much publicity, possible death penalty talk, no one took a plea. This means all the informants and paperwork had to be released. No more hiding. The Swiper was unmasked. And he had a few things to say about all the
I ain't paying
bloggers
attention
and
to none of
critics of
y'all,
him,
man. What y'all
such as
talking about, the frivolous
ourselves.
shit. You know what I'm talking about? YouTube, man. Y'all boring on YouTube, bro. Like, y'all boring. I see the shit. You know what I'm talking about? I see the shit, but, you know, I just don't pay attention to the shit. You know, I see a lot of shit on there. But shout out to everybody who support me, man. Hey, Trenchesnews, okay. Trenchesnews ain't in no motherfucking witness protection, none of that. You hear me? On everything. You better, you better off making up another story about shit like that. You know, I'm gonna go where I want to go. I ain't never not went where I want to go or none of that. You just don't know me. But anyways, though, hey, look, like I said, I ain't got nothing else to do with nothing but what that I was grabbed for, which is the Oblock shit. And I don't give a fuck about them. They motherfucker going down regardless whether me or not. They motherfucker did it sloppy. Like, period, bro. They brought their own self down. They did it in their cars. It's car readers. They was caught the first day, bro. So I don't want to hear shit else about that shit.
Now, to an extent, we agree with Swiper. This was some sloppy shit. I mean, amateur hour. However, he's not real for making a call, or Kenny Mac's associate swooped up for trying to return his gun. Trenches had nothing to do with this situation. So how he ends up in the paperwork is the real question. Is he a paid informant just roving through the police departments with his mask on, solving crimes? Like, what the fuck is going on here? He says the feds grabbed him for Kenny Mac texting him and being his celly. So what was in those texts? Because let's be clear here, I'm pretty sure they didn't interrogate Kenny Mac's entire text log, just the people who would be relevant to the case. Now, the suspicion could be, and what many aren't talking about, is Trenches was playing both sides and knew what was going on. He has quite a few connections to people on the Duck hit, so maybe the feds were just curious and swooped him up. None of that justifies him giving the information to build a conspiracy against the Oblock5, and that's exactly what he did.
You don't understand, bro. Like, bro, this is my best friend, bro. I can't, bro.
Marquez Jackson?
Yes, bro. I don't feel like saying this type of shit, bro. Like, he's my brother.
If you were jail time, man.
Look, he just had 2 babies. No, bro. No, you can't go to jail.
Lil D? That big on Perkins?
Perkins and... Bro, I'm not saying shit over, bro. Like, I'm done with this, bro. Man, them don't be on no gangster shit. All they do is credit card fraud. Them little fishes. I didn't think somebody else need to look into it.
Regardless of what happens for the murder, he, along with others, gave crucial statements that established the case for racketeering conspiracy. With the trial set to start next month, we are doing full breakdowns of this case, Cooperator 2 and 3, as well as witnesses and paperwork to get into. We will have a lot of information coming to get the people up to speed and ready for the biggest gang trial in recent history that has many implications. A lot of time possibly being issued to guys that know a lot of secrets involving different areas and people. Things could get messy, and Trenchesnews may have been the first on the case to be out of the snitching, but I can almost certainly guarantee you he won't be the last. Stay tuned in.